I thought I would do a quick video to give you some tips on how to mirror rigs across the character. Well, actually, mirroring is not the right term because I'm not mirroring anything. I'm recreating the rig on the opposite side of the character. But there's a few things that you can use to your advantage when doing so. And the reason why I prefer not to mirror things is because, let's say you have this hierarchy, which is what we created for the entire foot, right? If I just tried to mirror this across, well, first of all, I'm gonna have some transform issues because probably things are not going to be oriented the way I need them. I would need to check that the orientations are actually mirrored properly. It becomes sort of like a management problem. The second reason is there are elements in this hierarchy that would definitely not work when mirrored. For example, the IK goals. Those you can't just go and mirror. You have to create them on the chain that you're working on. So I did everything manually so that things would work. However, as I said, there's certain workflows that enable you to do this a little bit faster, and I'm going to show you how I basically did it. I'm creating every locator manually, and then I'm using the existing locators on the part of the rig that I already have finished to recreate the ones on the other side. So to show you, for example, how I did the foot control, that would be, I would just create a new locator, and then I set my drop action to match, and I match it to the existing one. Okay, so that gives me the correct location and initial orientation for it. And since I'm working in world space, I can just go into the properties. And first, for example, I know I want to mirror it to the other side of the character, which in world space is the x-axis. So I'm going to change the x position to use the opposite side of the world. And in this case, I just have to get rid of the minus sign. So my locator will be positioned exactly in the mirrored location on X. And then the next thing would be to rotate it. This locator is actually quite easy to do because it was only rotated a little bit tilted so that it would follow the shape of the foot, which is on the world Y axis. So I just have to take my world Y rotation, which in this case right now is matching this side of the character, and invert it by using a minus sign in this case. And now my locator is properly matched. And then what I would do from there is just go copy this guy's name and paste it on this guy, and just substitute the R for an L to get the site right. If I do that, I'm gonna get a number 2 right now because it's already created. So this is a duplicate name. Modo does not allow you to use the same name on 2 different objects. They're always unique names. But that's okay. I mean, I'm just showing you how to do it. And then I would just copy the manually the display options, like the size of the plane and any offsets and stuff like that. In some cases, the offsets are going to be opposite because of the orientation of the locators. For example, in the case of this locator over here, I did not match my new locator over to the one existing on this side because I knew that this locator, when I created it, I matched it to the joint or the goal it was related to. So that's what I did for these locators. I basically went in, created a new locator, and I matched it to my IK goal on the side of the character that I was interested in. And then that gives me automatically the orientation and position that I need for this locator. And then I just went in and I copied the display properties, which, for example, you can see that in the case of this one, the offset is minus 35.3 millimeters in the x-axis. But for this side, I have to just do the opposite value of that, which is 35.3 positive millimeters in x. So otherwise he would be in the opposite side. So that's because of the orientations of both sides of the character. That's all. So I guess what I'm getting to is all you need to do is make sure that you recreate everything manually and that you match it to the correct things in the rig when needed. And when not, you can just match what you have already done on one side of the rig. Another good example of that would be, for example, for the heel pivot. So what I did for this guy was I created my locator and I matched it over to this side of the rig. So that's good. And then I did what I already showed you, which is move it on X to this side and then invert the rotation. Okay, but I wasn't totally sure that the rotation I got is actually pointing towards the tip of the foot, and that would be okay. I mean, you have to build your rig for the model, not the other way around, which means is your rig might not be at all times completely symmetrical everywhere. And this might happen also because of adjustments you did to your joints and stuff like that. And that's fine. It doesn't have to be. But what it does have to be is that parts of the rig that are supposed to interact with other parts of the rig are built for the side of the rig you're working on, not just mirrored values across. So for example, in the case of this heel pivot, what I did is I made sure that his rotations were properly created by redoing the steps I took on the other side of the rig, which is I took him, I selected the last joint on the foot, which is actually not this one, it's the smaller one, but it's fine, both would work because this guy is a locator matched to him. And then I did my direction constraint with no compensation, and that would force the locator to actually point in the right direction. So let's go here, set this to x-axis, and then we do apply rotation, and then I can get rid of the constraint. And now my locator is pointing in the right direction, and the rotation values will not be the same as for this guy, but as I mentioned, that's just okay. So I guess that's pretty much it. It's just a few tips that I use to be able to work faster and in order to make sure I'm not missing anything. And that enables me to quickly do the other side of a character without having to try to mirror things and then fix them manually, which becomes, most cases, a huge mess. So I hope this helps you get a few ideas on how to work faster on your end for recreating rigs on opposite side of the character. So I'll see you in the next video. Okay, I wanted to do a quick checkpoint stop to see where we stand right now with our rig, and this would be the rig as it's finished from doing some of the tasks that we've been doing so far on both sides of the character. And right now I have a few things hidden, so I'm gonna show you basically what I've done. First of all, I've rigged most of the parts for the character for both sides, and I can see that there are some nodes that, even though I have everything hidden, are still showing. These guys, the up vectors for the knee and all the foot controls, should definitely not be showing. They should be part of the controls groups, so we're gonna see what's up with them. I've also gone and hidden most of the rig using the hidden group, and we have also two workspaces that we've created so far to work on the character, the feet rig and the clavicles, which now also contains the arms, so we could rename this workspace later on. So this is all the stuff that we have as part of the character rig that now is hidden. So everything is in pretty good shape right now. As I said, just make sure that everything is in their proper group. We'll obviously have to, at some point later on when the rig is finished, put everything under a single hierarchy so that our rig can become an asset that we can move through the pipeline. But for now it's fine if it's all separate. We just want to make sure that everything is under there somewhere. So let's take a look at these guys, because these guys are supposed to be controlled. So let's see where they are. Actually, I'm going to start just with one. Let's find him. He's part of the IK rig because he was part of the group here for the left foot. So I have two choices. I could just move this object to the controls group and leave it there and rename it, or I could create another control object that I'm going to constrain this guy to. And I think I'm going to do that because this guy is an up vector target. I don't want to mess with it, but the control might come in handy to have as a separate thing. So that's going to be very easy to do. Just create another locator. Let's match it to the up vector control. Let's name him CTLR knee up vector, and that's it. And we're going to duplicate it, and this guy is going to be same thing but on the left side, and we're going to match it to the other one. Let's select both, go to display, locator shapes. We're going to make them boxes, of course decently sized. There we go. I think that's enough, and we can actually make them the same red if you want as the rest of the IK controls. There we go. So there they are, and now we take them and we're going to move them over to the controls IK group. They jump somewhere else. I need to do that with compensation on. Well, actually I shouldn't have to. It's just because let's grab them again and move them over to their same location. Where are they? Now I can close this guy. Here they are. So this one is for the right side. There he is. Let's just zero out the position. It looks like they are there, but they're not visible. Oh well, obviously I have the group hidden. Sorry about that. Yeah, that was not too great. Anyway, there they are, and now all we have to do is zero out their transforms, and they're ready. And of course now we need just to constrain these guys to these controls. So him to him, and it's just a position constraint because the orientation is not supposed to do anything. So let's go modifiers, position, and this guy to this guy, position constraint. So all cool. Now we can just take both of these locators and add them to the hidden group. Oh, it unselected them. There you go. Add items. Perfect. Now we can just use these new controls to move the knees around. And let's say what else we had left. Oh, all the foot controls, of course. So let's see where those are. We're going to hide again our IK controls. This is the group that we're going to add the foot controls to. And let's see. They're here in the IK rig control. So it's all this. It's this entire group actually. So we're just gonna move them over to the IK controls group. Now they're properly located, and we're just gonna verify if there's anything in here that is not a control that we would need to hide. The effectors are already hidden. These locators are too. I don't see anything out of the ordinary. So it looks like the IK controls are complete. We're just going to leave these guys here in the IK rig. It's the ARM IK effectors. The ones for the feet are not there because they're part of the hierarchy over here in the foot setup, but they're part of the hidden group, so that's why we cannot see them, and that's fine. So I think we're in pretty good shape. When you unhide these controls, all you're supposed to see is controls the animator with touch. That's the only thing we want to see in the controls groups. So for FK, there we go. There's our arms FK. For IK, there's our IK controls. So everything is looking good. Let's unhide the geometry. The guide rig is also hidden. So looks like we're in good shape with the rig. And of course the rest of the rig is over here. You can unhide it if you need to modify stuff at some point. But that's it. We're good to go. So now it's time to start another part of the character. Okay, I want us to take the chance to do something that it's going to be a good exercise. Let's see how we can go about adjusting our rig to changing production requirements. So let's say that you are in the middle of the rigging process, or the rig is actually finished, and production changes the requirements for the characters. And let's say that now animation is actually going to need FK controls on the leg. And now we're kind of, well, not hosed, but in a tight spot, because we've already rigged the IK system onto the actual main rig joints. So what do we do? Do we rip everything apart or start again, or what? Well, let's do that. Let's try to add an FK leg system to the rig, and let's also add the correct joint blending to the main rig for this to work. So let's start working on that. Actually, this is not going to be as hard as it sounds. What we are going to do is take advantage of the fact that we still have our guide rig around, and we are going to grab some more legs from it and use them to rig the system. So the first thing I'm going to do is to take these joints, which are right now part of the main rig. Let's go find them. This joint thigh, he's part of this group that we created for the leg, the group right leg. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is extract this group from the main rig. I'm going to be doing everything on one side of the character, and then you can do the other side on your own, following the exact same step, so it's not going to be a problem. So I'm going to take this guy and compensation on, just unparent it in place. So now we have him outside of the main rig hierarchy, so we can hide that for a second. And because this is going to be now the actual IK leg, let's rename things accordingly. And I'm also going to get rid of the color they have right now, so let's set that to none. So I'm going to the color doesn't change because this refreshes when the scene is reopened. So let's do this. We're gonna call group our IK leg, and this is going to be the IK leg up vector, and this is going to be the IK thigh and the IK calf and the IK foot, the IK toes, and the IK toes end. Okay, so that's great. And now I'm going to take all these joints and just change the way they are displayed for me to know that this is not anymore the joints from the main rig, it's just the IK leg. So I'm going to change their display to use just line lengths and maybe a smaller joint size, like so. There it is. That's our IK leg now. It's not part of the main rig. So now we need to replace this leg on the main rig, because the main rig has no leg anymore. And we also have to create our FK leg. So what we're going to do is, let's unhide the guide rig, and I'm going to hide this hierarchy we just created, and we're going to borrow its leg. We're going to take this one over here, the joint our thigh guide and we're going to duplicate it and unparent that duplicate, and then we're going to take that duplicate and duplicate it again. Okay, there we go. So now we have these two extra leg chains. So this one over here is going to be our FK leg. So let's get rid of the guide part of the name, and let's call this FK thigh, FK calf, FK foot, FK toes, and FK toes end. Looks like these joints have the name that came from using the skeleton tool. We can check the guide later for that too. Oh, I missed this suffix over here. There you go. So this is our FK leg. So let's also remove the color from that. And this is going to be the actual guide, the main rig leg. So let's rename this accordingly. I'm gonna leave them as joints, so this is fine. And we're just going to remove the guide suffix from this. There we go. All right, so we're good. I'm gonna hide the these guys for now. And this one we're left with is the actual main rig leg. So I'm gonna change the display properties for these things first. Now I can hide the guide. Let's hide our guide. We don't need it anymore. And unhide the main rig. Okay. So here's our main rig. Let's change the display properties on this leg to match more the way the joints look on the rest of the rig. So to do that, we just change our link to custom, and let's give him bigger joint display sizes. And I can come in and resize those later on if I want. For now, I'm just going to leave them like that. So the next thing I need to do is I need to bring this leg back into the main rig. But I am going to package the legs first into more like independent components, and this is something that we're going to touch again later on during the course. But right now I just want them to be self-contained, so I'm going to create a couple of group locators. Let's go to group locator and then duplicate that one, and I'm going to match them to these joints so they can have the same orientation. So let's match this guy, and let's match this guy too. And this one is going to be group right leg, and this one is going to be group right FK leg. And we are going to put each leg into its respective group. So let's bring the actual leg, bring it under the right leg group, and let's grab the FK thigh and bring it under the FK leg group. Now we can take the actual rig leg group and bring it under the hip for the main rig. And now it's part of the main rig again, so we don't have to worry about our main rig. It has its leg back. Okay, I'm gonna hide it for now, but we're gonna come back to it soon. So let's take a look at our IK and FK legs. So I'm gonna start by hiding the IK leg. I'm gonna take care of the display properties of the FK leg. And for these guys, for now, I'm just going to turn them into boxes, and later on we'll resize them so they fit around the character nicely. But right now I'm just going to do that very quickly by setting their connection line to a box. There you go, not solid. And can we make it? No, we need to adjust these parameters. Oh, it's auto sizing. Yeah, there you go. Let's say that something like this is what we want. Okay. It looks rather ugly, but as I said, we'll adjust this later. So this is our FK leg. Okay, now we have our 3 legs working. There's the IK, the FK, and the main rig leg. So now it's time to rig them together. Now we have our 3 legs, and let's just, for the sake of completeness, put the IK leg group under the IK rig and the FK leg group under the controls FK. I'm also later going to rename these FK joints to control, because they're actually controls, they're not just joints. And actually I'll just take a quick second to do that. Control, so that it's going to be easier to recognize them once I start building the system for the leg blending. Okay, but before I do that, there's one thing I need to check, and that's the rotation order for the controls that I'm using on the leg. And this is kind of important because our leg is going to have quite a bit of motion range. We know we have 3 axes of freedom on the thigh, only 1 for the calf, and maybe also 3 for the foot, and just 1 for the toes. So let's see how we want to rotate our items so that we know we can support those rotations in the graph editor properly. So if I take the thigh, I know that probably the primary axis of rotation based on the current orientation of the joints for the entire leg should be the y-axis. And the reason is every joint in this hierarchy needs to rotate on the y-axis, all of them. Okay, so this should be my primary axis of rotation. For it to be my primary axis of rotation, it needs to be the last in the order of rotation drop down. And I can see that y, it's actually at the last position of this current order of rotation. So it's fine. That means when I rotate on y, the other 2 axes are following. Okay? Then probably the next one should be the z-axis, because then I can rotate this one and x would reorient itself to follow it. But right now it's not happening, and the reason is x is before the z-axis. So what I need for this to be the rotation order should be x, z, y. So I'm going to select all my joints in the hierarchy and select x, z, y. Okay, and because these are controls, let's check that they're zeroed out. So this guy is not, this guy is not, this guy's not. So okay, let's do that. Select everything, 0 all. Now everything is zeroed properly, and now I can rotate on y and the axes follow. I can rotate on z and x follows, and I can rotate z, x afterwards. So that's nice. Now we have a better rotation order for this hierarchy. And now that that's done, we can actually rig the legs. So this is how it's going to work. We need a blending system that will take one pose. Let's say I have this guy, this leg posed like this. Okay, I'm just giving it an arbitrary pose right now, but let's say it's something like that. And this is my FK leg. I can just move it like that, and and my IK leg is in the neutral pose. And I want the actual rig leg to blend between both. Well, we've done that already for our arms. We built this blending system using constraints. But for the purpose of a different exercise, we're going to use a different blending system this time, so you can learn a new one and apply it to any other situation where you think it would be better to use this than constraints. So I'm going to show you what that is in a second. First, we're going to rig this in a new workspace, so we can keep our feet rigs workspace just for the feet. So let's create a new one called legs. Make that one the active one. And we're going to bring first all of our FK joints. And I'm going to get rid of those channels. We don't need them. Well, I can't get rid of them right here, but we're going to add the rotation world channels for each node. So let's say add channel world rotation, excuse me. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to be blending world rotation matrices. Sorry. And I'm going to show you how that works. So the advantage that this system has is that it's going to operate on world rotations. That means that we can completely bypass any transforms coming up in the hierarchy down to the joints we're rigging. So by doing this, it's a lot simpler to figure out how things are going to be oriented. So this is our FK joints. Now let's go and get the IK leg. Where's the IK leg? Controls IK. Let's find the leg. Yeah, sorry, I opened the IK controls. IK rig. Yeah, I don't need the controls, I need the rig. Here's our leg. Let's bring in these joints. Here they are. And let's also bring in their world rotations. Okay, so I have the thigh over here, the calf, the foot, and actually for these guys, I do not need these channels. These are related to the IK they have right now, so I'm just gonna remove them from the node. I'm gonna do the same with this guy. Remove channel from node, and these two too. Fine, now we have only the world rotations. And the next thing I'm gonna do is I am going to bring the target joints that we're going to rig, which are these guys over here. So let's go find that hierarchy. Here it is. This is the actual leg for the rig. So let's bring it in, and we're gonna also add their world rotations. So this is the thigh. We have the toes and the calf and the foot. There you go. And now what we're going to do is to be able to blend from one leg to the other. Because we're dealing with world rotations, we need to use matrix nodes. Don't worry, this is not going to be too technical. All I want you to be aware of is the fact that world rotations use matrices to be described. So if you go to the channel list on an item and you look at the world rotation channel or position or scale, you will see that it uses a matrix 4 value. And we cannot edit a matrix directly in here as any other value, as float values that you might be used to. There's some nodes that allow you to decompose matrices and work with the elements inside, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to say, okay, I have one matrix, one rotation over here, another rotation here. I just want you to blend between them. And to blend between matrices, fortunately, it's also very easy because Modo has in the matrix channel modifier category a matrix blend that basically takes two matrices and blends between them using a blend percentage amount. So it's going to be as easy as that. So all I'm going to do is let's rename this to UTI R leg blend. Let's just call it that, and duplicate that a few times. So we have 5 of them. We need 1 per joint. And the last one. Okay, good. Now, what we need to do is, as you can see, the node has two input matrices and a matrix output. So we're going to enter into each one of these, each one of the joints we have. I'm going to use, just for the sake of consistency, because the order is not important, the FK joints as the A input on each node, and the IK joints as the B input on each node. So I'm just going to wire that. World rotation to input A, world rotation to input A, world rotation to input A, and we do that for each one of these guys. And now we do the same, but with the IK joints. So we're going to use, oh, we're missing one? No, there's 5 of them. The world rotation as input B for each node. There we go. So now everything is set up in these nodes. And now I just need to feed the matrix output to each corresponding joint. The one thing that you want to make sure is that you are plugging your joints in the same order. So thigh goes with thigh, calf with calf, foot with foot, toes with toes, and toes end with toes end, and it goes out the same way. The thighs go out to the thigh, because you don't want to end up blending stuff that is in the wrong order. And as you can see, as I do this, the joints in the scene immediately moved to the FK position, well, FK orientation. The reason is the blending for each blend node is now set to 0, which is input A, which is the FK joints. So now I need to create a control that will allow me to blend the entire leg from IK to FK and vice versa. We're going to do what we've used before, a little math add node that I'm just going to use as a pass through for now, and then we'll later expose it to the UI of the rig somewhere. And we're just going to take the blend amount channels on each one of these guys and wire them up to that node. So let's get them first. Let's select all of the blend nodes and say add channel, the blend percentage. And I'm going to select them with shift on each node. I select the blend channel, and then with shift selected, just draw from one socket onto the add node that I created, and I have here my control. So let's rename it to UTIR leg blend value. Let's call it value. Okay, so right now it's on the FK pose, and as I increase the value over here, you can see every joint is moving to match the IK leg. There is one interesting side effect to this approach, and it's that if I drive my values past 0 towards negative, you can see that the joints keep rotating, and what they're doing is they just keep interpolating the matrices outside of the 0 to 1 range. So I guess you could say that could be useful for certain things, but I'm not totally sure that's something the animator would want to use. So for the case of our exercise, we're just going to limit this later on in the UI from a 0 to 1 range, and that's it. So that's it. That we're done with the rig for the FK leg. So as you can see, it was not that bad and not that hard, and the actual rig is pretty simple. So now you know one additional way of dealing with blending transforms in a rig or any Modo scene. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it, and you can do the same thing for the other leg. And in the next lessons, we're actually going to start working on the torso of the character. So we're ready to move on. All right, see you there.